It says it's being live streamed.
Welcome, everybody, to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gomer, and a podcast engineer, scheduler, and so on here. And we're excited to be starting another show with the Spirit of the Game Foundation. And Kurt and I are part of the admin team here. And so this is a great foundation that was founded by Trent, and so we're here with Trent Simmons and his brother Mark, and so this is a global foundation. But Kurt, do you have anything you'd like to add into this?
Absolutely, Emily. Emily, thank you for kicking this off. This is the kind of thing, folks, that it takes when we're trying to go out there and make an impact in the world. Communication and making your efforts available to others is very important. That's what we're trying to do here with this, your Spirit of the Game podcast, an all new production. I'm pleased, proud, and privileged to be a part of it. And we're going to have a little bit of a unique offering here because we're going to go into the background of these two gentlemen, and particularly Trent Simmons, founder of Spirit of the Game. And we have a mutual contact that brought me into Spirit of the Game because somebody in both of our lives saw me going out there and doing impact work and really felt that I could use a little help organizing what I'm doing, giving it a little bit more structure. And then this dimension of accountability is very exciting to me because I've been able to just be a little bit of a freelancer and go about what I do and just do it a little whimsically. But now I've got great structure, I've got great content, and a lot of things that are produced by Spirit of the Game is very powerful to me. So I hope by sharing this, you will find the same. So I want to go into the story here, and I want to start with you, Trent. Trent, obviously in the last year, I've gotten to know you pretty phenomenally well, including that you and your brother have some roots and ties to me locally. But let's start off to the spark for Spirit of the Game. Let's go back in your life, Trent, and help us all capture this thing in your life. There was something that motivated you, that instigated you, that inspired you, that you needed to do something, whether it was inspired right away as Spirit of the Game, or whether it was you need to come up with something and it became named Spirit of the Game. How did this all start? What was that moment that said you wanted to go this direction, Trent?
Well, it's a series of moments, but I think, the long story is quite a long story. You could go back to like 10 or 12 or 8 or 9 years old, depending again how far back you really want to go. But the short version of the early stages of this journey was a series of choices of what I didn't want to do with my life. That, okay, here's a belief system. Yeah, that's not for me. Okay, here's a way of approaching life success. Okay, that's not for me. Okay, here's this way of doing business, of living a life. Oh wow, yeah, that's for me. Like, oh, part of you could describe my 20s, I'd say, under the philosophy I came up with, that it's really not that important to figure out what you want to do with your life. It's more important to have as much fun as you can while you're figuring it out. So I lived that philosophy to the fullest. So accountability, you would not look at any version of Trent Simmons in his 20s and say, wow, that guy's got great accountability. You could look at him like, wow, that guy like just invented his own definition of success that works for him, and then he went out and lived it. So, then there was just, a series of evolution, basically growing up, that just crystallized at one moment on April 10th, 2014, where I was in, biggest crisis of my life, both personally and professionally. And in the midst of crazy, 20-hour days trying to pull off some major event, I got woken up at 1 o'clock in the morning by a vision. If you believe in God, you would call it a message from God. If you don't believe in God, you would call it a message from the universe. Or if you don't believe in either of those two things, you would just say it was a dream. Regardless of what it was so vivid. And the message was like crystal clear. Stop wasting your energy on your current audience. because there's a lot of people around the world that need your energy a lot more than your current audience. And it was such a strong message that I didn't even go back to sleep, even though I only had like 2 or 3 hours. I immediately started working. And by the end of that day, I had signed up, loose partnership agreements with 10 of the biggest, 12 biggest nonprofits in Trenton, New Jersey. Not a huge city, but it's not a tiny one either. So I got some pretty big names, just basically straight through. Oh, wow. Okay. This guy's got a vision and he knows what he wants to do. Finally, after 38 years, this guy actually knows what he wants to do with his life. That people saw that and they signed up. I was like, okay. So that was an extremely powerful day that, yeah, you could say the next 5 years was actually figuring out the reality of how to take this vision from the middle of the night and actually do it, how to live that. Because any of the lessons I learned in the first 38 years of my life were basically worthless, or most of them, I should say, were worthless for the first 5 years of figuring out how the nonprofit world works and also how it doesn't.
There we go. So speaking of how the world works, and we think of family and we think of siblings and brothers, Mark, I want to bring you in. I coincidentally have a brother, Mark, as well. But Mark, I want to capture your part of this. Before we got into this show, there was a little bit of dialogue about how, like most siblings, most brothers, like me and my brother, you go and you live separate lives. And so now you're in a more atypical situation that many brothers do get to be able to work together, but it's more of a rarity. So Mark, now you're in this rare position to work quite strongly and quite extensively with your brother, Trent. Tell us more about that, Mark. What does this mean to you that, in decades of past, you didn't as much share this devotion in this space, and now you've gravitated into it, and I'm watching you. You're going full force. You're a strong leader here at Spirit of the Game. Tell us about that emergence and, kind of how you went from off on other things to now you're doing this with the four of us here.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt. There's a lot in that that question. It's kind of funny. I don't feel like I'm much of a leader in Spirit of the Game. I'm kind of an appendage hanging on, trying to figure things out. But Trent and I went very separate ways. And I was very busy and fully involved and dedicated to my career. And I knew what Trent had. I'd look at what he was doing every now and then, but I didn't pay it much attention. And last summer, it became clear to me that I needed a complete change from my current career. I spent 27 years as a minister in a Christian fellowship, Christian church. And so a lot of different reasons I needed to get away out of that. And I had a little more time. And right about that time was when I became aware, Trent told me about the new Spirit of the Game's new Mind, Body, Soul program. And having grown up with a very typical Western mindset of every being fragmented, like in from a religious sense, but I think lots of other people can relate. God does with your soul, and you eat good and you exercise for your body and you run from emotions and whatever. And I just saw in Mind, Body, Soul, I saw this integration that I had been wrestling with in my own journey. Like, we're not just separate parts. We're not a bunch of different pieces put together in one being. We are one being. And I saw the opportunity, like the need for my own mental health and learning to be more of a whole person, and an opportunity to begin to share that with others. And so that's been my main focus here at Spirit of the Game, building the Mind, Body, Soul program, where we just basically what we do is we seek to bring together practitioners in all different aspects, all different disciplines, for a more whole life. And like a real simple example of that is you go to the gym and you see somebody doing the exact right thing. They are getting their exercise. They have an exercise regimen. So wonderful and so beautiful. And they're plugged into their headphones and listening to something, and they really don't have a clue what their body is actually doing. They're getting all the physiological benefits, but there's a whole lot more. And not that one is bad and one is good, but it's just there's so much more possibility. So we're exploring possibilities. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be working with my brother now. I loved what I did before, and it's a dramatic change from what I was doing before, what I'm doing now. But there's such a need for more mental awareness. And that's really what we're trying to do with Mind, Body, Soul, mental awareness as people go about changing the world, to be more conscious of how they're doing that.
Yeah, great stuff. Great work. Great story. I'm pleased to be a part of it, maybe as your brother from another mother. So here I am. And this group has allowed me to hop on board some impact work with veterans. So Spirit of the Game has the Impactful Veterans Network, and I'm part of the U.S. Council as our U.S. chair for the Impactful Veterans Network. And I bring it forth that there's two sides of that coin. There's the side where the Impactful Veterans Network, so all veterans wanting to do an impact and specializing in what we have going on here at Spirit of the Game. And then also for non-vets to make an impact in a way that it's making an impact within the veteran community as a non-vet, which is a little bit of where I would be coming from because I'm not a veteran. So this element of, coalescing this with servicemen and women is very exciting for me. And Emily, I want to lean on you a little bit. Emily, you came in with me through the World Ability Podcast Network and all the other things we do. As Trent and Mark got to know us. We have a dozen other things we're working on that is in this field of impact. But Emily, when you're in this space and you're thinking for yourself, what is Spirit of the Game? Emily Gomer, what is Spirit of the Game to you?
Probably a lot of things, but I think a lot of it's about like making connections and making an impact on your community and with others, and the whole accountability and so on. So to kind of help make the world a better place and so on. So that's a little bit of what I've gotten from the mission and so on. So
there you go. Wow, here you go, Emily Gomer. You can tell she was born in the 80s, folks. So she's one of our 80s children. And I think I felt the heart of the 1980s of the USA right in what she said there. Because, yeah, we're here to make the world a better place. So, Mark, you said a lot about the Body, Mind, Soul program. But, Mark, now expound a little bit and do like Emily did. Let's talk about Spirit of the Game. Mark, what is Spirit of the Game to you? How do you share? What is Spirit of the Game?
Well, I say it different every time. What there's so much more to Spirit of the Game than Mind, Body, Soul is a tiny little piece. It's a whole lot more. We've talked a lot about that because that's but it's far bigger than that. But I would say unleashing potential. And what I mean is I have met some amazing, incredible people in my time with Spirit of the Game. And just been a real honor to get connected with some of these people. And I see Spirit of the Game as a vehicle for them to, as we say, maximize their own impact. And that of course, that needs a lot of fleshing out to explain how that happens. But yeah, it's a vehicle for people to unleash their potential for impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trent, I want to dive in with you a little bit because a lot of times founders like yourself are really good to say, this isn't about me. Before the show, we talked about, we're not joining the Simmons brothers here. This is, kind of a global thing. It's a global structure. Wherever people are at, they're going to have so many ways to come in and participate. And, we're looking at that a lot of people's stories with Spirit of the Game could be that they maybe don't meet the two of you until quite a while after they plug in and play with us here and making a lot of impact. But there is this thing of the power of one. And so, Trent, you talked about how, whether dream, energy from the universe, whether calling from God, this moment you had this moment, Trent Simmons, you had this inside of you, and you got the commitment to bring it out. And it may have been loosey-goosey accountability, whatever, but there was enough accountability here that we're all talking right now on a live stream. You, Trent, you sparked this from maybe a source beyond you and us, but it came through you, like to say our bodies are temples, great work can be done through us. That, yeah, we give credit to so many other things and other people, but Trent, tell us more about, to you, what is here at Spirit of the Game? As this is available to thousands and millions, and there's 8 billion people on the planet, that this is available to masses of people. What is it to one person? What is Spirit of the Game to a person? What are they getting here?
So, I mean, we're not there yet. Like, we've done a ton of work in the almost 5 years that we've been, really working on this. And, if you want to go back further, there's like 2.5 years before that. Again, you can go back a lot of different ways. Like, what's the real starting point? But I mean, right now, I'd say one of my favorite analogies is like I didn't invent or I didn't start Spirit of the Game. I didn't invent this. I was the guy like walking along the beach who stubbed his toe on something and looked down and was like, oh, wow, that's an interesting looking rock. So like I went and like tried to pick it up and found out it was a big rock. So I started scraping away the sand. And next thing I know, I was like, wait, this is just the tip of a gigantic mountain. It goes all the way down and has its roots into everything. But it's just a different kind of way of looking at the world that I think like mission accomplished will be like, oh, hey, we have provided the framework for your life, how you as an individual can actually literally maximize your impact. And I've been working on this scale of 1 to 100 for having, like 100 would be like, that optimal thing. But nobody in human history has ever reached 100. So it doesn't mean it's impossible, but it means like, even like the most famous, most impactful people, they missed a few things, and then like, oh, okay. So, their impact got capped at like an 80. So, I'm not going to mention the specific individuals because, it's just my personal view of world history. But the most impactful person in human history, in my opinion, got to like an 80. And yeah, I think that, if they had this framework and if other people, if we can build this framework, we can literally get to the point that everybody has redefined their definition of winning. Because right now, it's mostly about making money and achieving, fame and power. And really, it's now we're as a society, we're operating in what I consider to be a mass psychosis. That we've allowed this to become our definition, and it's incredibly unhealthy in almost every aspect. Sure, there are some fringe benefits, but that's really, what my goal is to provide this framework so people can avoid the rat race. They can avoid this addiction to more money, more power, more ego, and they can instead live much more fulfilled lives that help so many people. And if we can make this the new standard, for me, it's about 13% of the population. And I've arrived at that number through a lot of different things. Like, how many people do you really have to impact the whole society? Right now, I'm saying 13%. You're like, okay, what's significant about that number? Well, first it was like, originally I was like, yeah, about 15%. If you can get 15% of all middle-class people in the first world to change their root behavior, that should be enough of a tipping point. And I was like, well, actually 13%. Because let's say we get 13% to say, you know what? I don't care about money. I care about impact. Money is a means to an end. The more money I have, the more impact I can have. But that's my only reason for pursuing that. And I want more power so that I can have more of an impact, so I can help more people, so I can allocate resources where they should be going. Great. We got 13% of the population doing that. And then over the next however many years, each of those people can influence 3 more people. All right, well, now we're at 52%. 52, that's the majority. Okay, great. Human history, it's been solved. Like, we've solved that problem, and now we can, become what Julius calls a tier 1 civilization. If we can get the majority of the people to stop acting under the current mass psychosis, we can have an amazing, beautiful global society where there is no want. Because in my opinion, technologically, we've already reached the tipping point that there's no need for anybody to have to lack opportunity or to lack their basic necessities of life. That we all could be thriving as a human species. But the willpower is not there, the global structures are not there, and the internal framework is not there. That most internal frameworks that build towards this have essentially been hijacked by people that say ours is the only path and you're one of us or you're one of them. And we've got like 3 major groups in the world all living that if they could all just say, oh, hey, we have way more in common with the other people trying to live life the right way than the fanatics inside our own party or religion or government or whatever. Wow, we'd be there. Like that's the goal, is to make spirit of the game unnecessary. That we've just reached this point that everybody's like, oh yeah, you're talking about that thing that everybody already lives their life by. So why do we even have to keep talking about it? Now it's just the new normal. To me, I think that normal human behavior is to work hard for what you need so that then you can help other people. And if that's not the way you're living life, I think you're abnormal. I think there's something wrong with you. That's just my opinion. But, again, if I looked at Trent for the first 38 years of his life, that's an abnormal person. So, and even after like this epiphany, it wasn't like I clicked it and like, oh, wow, now I'm just this great person. Like, I do not claim to be a great person or some role model or like, wow, everybody should be like Trent. No, Trent was a self-centered, selfish person. And a lot of people still look at me that way. Like, oh, Trent, all you do is use people. I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, we're trying to get to this tipping point, and like, I don't know a better way to do this. I'm not some genius in this regard that I know how to create a global social movement that everybody's on the same page and everything's clicking. I don't have a freaking clue. I've never done this before, and only a handful of people ever have, and very few of them like did it with intentionality from the beginning. So sometimes I like to joke, we're reinventing Buddhism without the benefit of enlightenment. But that's just one of the examples. So again, I try not to like say, hey, we're this, we're very a-religious, agnostic, whatever. Like, we don't pick sides. We don't say anybody's got it right. Because I think everybody has some of the answers. Some people think they have all the answers, and I'm like, okay, great. That's great for you. If you've got all the answers and you're living a life that doesn't have any of these problems, then your society doesn't have any of these problems, kudos, great. That's a percentage of the population we don't have to worry about. So let's just worry about the percentage of the population that there is something clearly wrong with them, that they have great material success and are still miserable, mental health issues, in spite of having no real problems. So anyway, I think I could go off and on that. I don't want to get too far off and deep in a tangent, but hopefully that helps to explain a little bit about where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm experiencing this in a way that where you're coming from is empowering for people around the world in where they want to go. 8 billion people on the planet. And to your point, there's basically about 8 billion different versions of how to best live life on Earth right now at this moment. And so the idea is, when we get into this impact work and we have a cause, or we, have something, whether it's climate change or social justice or whatever it may be, there's so many ways to go about it. But the point is great. Like, when I say the power of one, I think a lot of people around the world underestimate the impact that they can make in the world. So I think it's great to be here at Spirit of the Game, where that can be, magnified, and that can be emphasized, and that can be connected for a person that, hey, it is very important that what's inside of you, like you talked about, Trent, what was inside of you, what's inside of us is ever so powerful that when we can go out there and do that good, it's going to pay a lot of dividends to humanity, to the environment, and everything going on in this world. So, Mark, I want to come in and let you expound a little bit. We're kind of hearing the nature of this is that it's what it is for an individual, but it's also something for groups and organizations and clusters of people. Even the way we get organized, we can have local coordinators and leaders. We can have regional leaders, state leaders, national leaders. We have a global council and so forth. Mark, how are you experiencing this here in terms of if people are part of a group and they think a group is doing great impact and the members of a different group might benefit from what we have here? How would you describe that, Mark? How do groups and other organizations, how do they participate with us here?
That's a hard question to answer. And part of the answer here I think it's going to be like, I'll be on a Q&A call and someone will come on and they want to know all that Spirit of the Game, everything Spirit of the Game is about. They want the big picture. And I'm like, I don't know. No. And they like look at me, well, what do you mean you don't know? I said, I don't know. I'm working on one branch and there's a whole tree. So it's so big and so complex, the Spirit of the Game. And a lot of us, we don't know what's going on in the foundation as a whole, because it takes most of my bandwidth to keep track of what we're doing. So, but yeah, like some collaboration we're doing. I've begun to, through the wellness department, I've begun to work with Olive Akafuma, the Africa chair, and with her work with the Impactful Women's Network. And she's got a battered women's group that she wants to start creating a kind of wellness space program for. And so we're coordinating on that. And so hopefully we can use our mind, body, soul, not prototype, what's the word? Template to present something for her then to present to these people she's working with. So that kind of thing, one part of Spirit of the Game can modify their offering to fit in with another part of Spirit of the Game. And that's internal groups. External, it got canceled, but I was supposed to be having a meeting with the lady from the International Stress Management Agency, and I don't want to say too much about that because we haven't even had our first meeting yet, but we are looking, and there's several groups like that, international groups, that we're looking to develop a mind, body, soul specific program for that other NGO to use with their people. So internal groups collaborating and taking our offerings out to external groups. I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, absolutely. That was perfect. I like the response. Thanks, Mark. So, Emily, we are in that moment now where it's wrap up time, but I like the minute to win it format, Emily. So, Emily, I want you to come up with something that Mark and Trent can respond to in a minute or less, a minute to win it. What would you like to learn from these guys, Emily, right now? What's a quick little response that they could provide you? And then we'll wrap up. What are you thinking, Emily? You're working on your understanding of Spirit of the Game too, right, Emily?
Yeah, and I was just when Mark was talking about like how I was thinking of like Jackie Zaccoli and the whole like collaboration with her and so on.
So you want them to respond to a little bit of what we're familiar with Jackie? Is that what you want them to take a minute to respond to? Oh, are you distracted there, Emily?
Yeah, so if they want to, not in this. Yeah, I have background noise here.
Okay. All right. So why don't we do that? Mark, we'll start with you. Just a quick little minute here. She's mentioning her friend Jackie, who is the one that basically referred Emily and I to Spirit of the Game, and it's her involvement that brought us here. She's got the Global Impact Network that is part of what was that experience with inside of her that she brings out to all of us. So Global Impact Network and the flair that we see out of Jackie Zaccoli. What is that to you, Mark? What do you think that does for Spirit of the Game, and how does that exemplify how more people can come in here and help us with this work here at Spirit of the Game? What do you think, Mark?
Well, I mean, yeah, Jackie's going to be far better at answering this question than I am. But the fact that someone the caliber of Jackie finds value in being connected with Spirit of the Game says a lot about Spirit of the Game.
Absolutely. So, Trent, what would you like to say about this Global Impact Network and Jackie as a leader, and how that exemplifies how there's really a role for everybody here?
Yeah, I actually had a chat with Jackie this morning, because she was kind of like, yeah, Trent, I feel like I'm being pulled in all these different directions. It's like, yeah, let's reverse that. That's not what Spirit of the Game is supposed to be. It's supposed to be that framework that, like, you can put all of your different impact projects and into a cohesive manner. She's like, oh, you mean like, our literacy spectrum program that I've been doing? Like, exactly. Like, Jackie was working on all these different projects, and she didn't really know how they all tied together. I mean, in her head, it was clear, but she never had really a system to put it down on paper. So now it's clear to everybody else. And that's how I know that I really the magic of Spirit of the Game has been grasped by somebody, is when they say something like Spirit of the Game gives them the framework for all of their different areas of impact, and how it all ties together in a cohesive manner that makes it easier for them to explain to other people. And that's, to me, that's the beauty of what we've got, and all of these amazing, talented people that have been attracted by this approach. That there's so many organizations, they do one or two things, and they're in that box. And we've got like 7 or 8 boxes, but we don't just do 7 or 8 boxes. We explore the overlap, the space in between the boxes, the line. So wellness and women's, there's a ton of space to explore there. But then you add, go down, okay, women's, youth, and wellness. Wow, okay, now we've opened up a bunch of new stuff to explore. But women's, youth, wellness, and business. Oh, wow, yeah, we should probably do mental health classes for young female entrepreneurs. Oh my goodness, okay, wow, like, what's next? And that's the thing. No idea, because we've still got a lot more to explore. And this is also part of the issue, is if you got 1 million organizations all working on wellness, and none of them talking to the women's, and none of them figuring out the youth or the business and how that applies, wow, what you get is 1 million people doing the same thing. We want to be the one that says, hey, we found something else because we went and we looked in an area nobody has looked at yet. Somebody take what we figured out and go do something with it, because we're just going to go find the next thing that we think is going to be of value to the world.
There you go. That next thing that's going to be of value to the world. What a way to conclude today's episode and get us looking forward to the next episode. So these are like some preamble episodes that just kind of give some background and really help us converge to this development here, which is bringing you absolutely your Spirit of the Game podcast. I'm excited to be a part of it. Again, my name is Kurt Roskoff. You can reach me with Spirit of the Game, Kurt, K-U-R-T, at spiritofthegame.org. You can give me a call, US phone number of 262-372-1754. Emily, do you want to give how you can be reached?
So if anybody wants to reach out to me, my email is just Emily, EMILY, at spiritofthegame.org.
Okay, sounds good. And Mark and Trent, anything you want to give in terms of Spirit of the Game information or your own contact info, whatever you'd like to do there?
No, I just want to, again, emphasizing that exploration element there. We're redoing the website, so keep your eyes tuned there, but also tune in at GMT 1600 every Thursday as TIWN explores its overlap with each of our other divisions. And that's what we're going to get into in future episodes of this podcast, the space between. So Yeah, you can, you don't need to reach me personally because again, it's not about me. The website's there and we've got global leaders for all of these different divisions that talk to them. They're the ones that really know what's going on in their division.
There you go. So, and spiritofthegame.org, clearly the homepage website for Spirit of the Game Foundation, and check out the many pages available on LinkedIn.com. Spirit of the Game has a very strong LinkedIn presence. So let's engage. Let's be a part of it. And we look forward to seeing you sometime, hopefully, on our Spirit of the Game Zoom sessions. That'll be great. So again, I'm Kurt Roskoff for World Ability Podcast Network, saying goodbye for now and looking forward to the next Spirit of the Game podcast. Bye for now.